epidemic that has devastated communities across the nation. From 1999 to 2017, drug overdoses killed more than 700,000 Americans. And the Australian state of New South Wales has announced an independent inquiry into the ongoing bushfires. The 6-month inquiry will examine the causes of the blazes, as well as how the state prepared and responded to them. Bushfires have killed 25 people in the region and damaged thousands of homes. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Leanne, thank you. Now let's get back to the coronavirus, with the death toll rising to 170, with more than 1,000 new cases in the Hubei province. Just breaking this hour, India reporting its first case of the coronavirus in Kerala state. And at the same time, the World Health Organization has called a meeting on whether to declare the outbreak a global emergency. Joining us now, Paul Hunter, Professor of Health Protection at the Norwich School of Medicine at the University of East Anglia. Professor Hunter, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you with us. Should the World Health Organization designate this a public emergency of international concern?
I'm fairly sure it will, if not today, the next time it meets. One of the issues that why it hasn't called it's a public health emergency and national concern at the moment is that primarily all of the activity is currently within a single country, China, and there is yet as of certainly of yesterday, there was no evidence of sustained person-to-person spread out in other countries. So I think up until now, the WHO has made the right call on that. But it does seem to have spread widely throughout China, and so it's not looking good for subsequent spread. And I think one of the big issues is that although in the West, where we've got a fairly effective healthcare systems where we can actually manage small numbers of patients in a very safe way, there are many countries in the region that would certainly not be able to do that. Their health systems aren't as well resourced as elsewhere, and I think in that case that it would be very difficult to control spread. So I was going to
ask you, Professor Hunter, is it actually possible, do you think, to prevent the spread further? We've seen 1 or 2 cases elsewhere, but is it almost inevitable that it's going to become a much more widespread outbreak?
A week ago, I would have disagreed with that statement. I'm not so sure now. I think it's certainly inevitable that we will have continuing spread for a while. At the moment, I think it's still too early to know whether or not this will be a disease that dies out sometime during the course of this year, particularly as we get into the summer. And most of these infections spread much more rapidly in the winter than they do in the summer. There will be further spread, I'm absolutely sure, and I think it's likely but not inevitable that there will be other countries that see wide-scale spread within their boundaries. I think that's looking increasingly inevitable.
Professor, should the fact that for the moment a lot of the reactions to the virus are quite mild cause more concern, because that could make it spread to more people, especially if it's undetected?
Certainly, yes. Again, this is something that is different to the SARS outbreak, the previous coronavirus outbreak that started in China some 20 years ago, in that the infectivity in that outbreak was very much once people had developed symptoms, whereas there is, and although the evidence is still not absolutely 100%, there is fairly increasing evidence that in this outbreak, in the current outbreak, people are spreading the infection before they become ill, and that certainly will add to the difficulty in controlling this outbreak. If you've got a system that rapidly diagnoses patients and then transfers them into healthcare facilities that can actually manage subsequent risk, then that's a very good way of controlling it. But if you've got a lot of cases, if you're getting people spreading it before they even know they've got the infection, then that gets much more difficult to treat. Of course, even if that does occur, it's not obvious how much of a issue pre-symptomatic development spread will be in terms of the course of the outbreak. outbreak, but it certainly is a worrying development.
Paul Hunter, thanks very much indeed. That was Paul Hunter, Professor of Health Protection at the Norwich School of Medicine at the University of East Anglia, bringing us up to speed on the spread of the coronavirus.
And up next, straight ahead on Daybreak Europe, Deutsche Bank targets a slightly lower CET1 ratio as 2019 cost targets are met and FIC trading revenue beats estimates. We'll hear from CFO James von Moltke next. The stock lower. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Coca-Cola is getting ready to roll out caffeinated water with a product called AHA. The company's CEO admits it has been behind when it comes to sparkling water. We'll get a fuller picture of how Coke made out during the fourth quarter when it opens its books before the market opens. One-day delivery helped Amazon over the holidays, but analysts say providing that service is costly. Those costs could weigh on Amazon's bottom line when it reports earnings later today. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says the economy faces some uncertainties, including the spreading and deadly coronavirus. Central bankers left interest rates unchanged at their first policy meeting of the year. Stocks ended mixed yesterday. The market rallied briefly following the Fed's interest rate announcement, but the advance quickly fizzled. Layoffs are coming to Evercore. The firm, which advises on mergers and acquisitions, is cutting more than 100 workers. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Witham offers private equity expertise to address the advisory, audit, and tax needs of your fund's portfolio companies.
Hi, I'm Bill Hageman, Witham's proud CEO. Witham's private equity specialists understand the unique challenges facing PE firms. We work hand in hand with sponsors and their portfolio companies to help maximize the value of their investments with our world-class advisory, audit, and tax solutions, and industry expertise in key growth sectors such as healthcare, manufacturing, and real estate.
Visit witham.com/PE for more information.
Business is...
Welcome to Nuffield Health Battersea, a gym built around you. You get regular health MOTs to create a plan that works for you, with physios and personal trainers on site. You'll find a wide range of equipment and classes, and our expert team will support you to get the most out of your health, fitness, and your membership. Join today to get the rest of the month free. Search Nuffield Health. Specialists in you. 12-month commitments only. Facilities stated are in most gyms. Visit nuffieldhealth.com/terms.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, keep me out the cold jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, East London jobs, West London jobs, extra hour in bed jobs, startup jobs, late start jobs, get home in the daylight jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, flexible working on a Friday jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
This is not a cat. This is not a rocket. And this is not a sale. That's right. At Smarty Mobile, we're not having a sale. While others are slashing prices, we're introducing our best ever new plans. Take our new 30 gig data SIM for just £10 a month. With unlimited calls and texts and no speed restrictions, credit checks or contract tying you down. Why shop around? New plans, great value. Now that's Smarty. Grab yours today. Search Smarty Mobile. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night. And somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here. Testing mattresses in the Witch Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB digital radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
8:30 a.m. in London, 9:30 if you're listening in Paris, Frankfurt or Brussels. Good morning, everyone. I'm Naira Chahich.
And I'm Roger Hearing, and you're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
It's 8:30 in the morning here, so 30 minutes into the equity market open, Roger, and we're seeing a resumption of risk off. So after 2 days of gains, green on the screen in Europe, down 0.9% on Europe's equity benchmark, the stock 600. Industry groups, really most of them in the red. Only food and beverages flat, but oil and gas, tech and banks underperforming. Taking a look across the regional equity benchmarks, you're seeing the FTSE 100 down 0.7%, the DAX and CAC 40 down more than 1%, the FTSE MIB also down more than 1%, and the IBEX down almost 0.9%. We were flat on the S&P 500 yesterday. Of course, the market also digesting lots of earnings this week. We've got something like 40% of S&P 500 companies reporting, including a lot of tech names. Tesla, Microsoft and Facebook is what we got overnight. Dow, S&P and NASDAQ futures all lower by around 0.8%. The market also digesting what we got from the Fed. Of course, no change to rates, but what was important was the guidance that we got around inflation, and a lot of people reading that as a dovish signal from Jay Powell. We saw Treasury yields react accordingly, and the 10-year yield slides 2.5 basis points to a 156 handle. This is more perhaps about the general risk off because of the spread of coronavirus that we're seeing cross asset today. The 10-year bund yield down almost 3 basis points, negative 40. 10-year gilt yield slides 4 basis points as we also look ahead to a BOE decision with money markets absolutely split. It's a coin toss as to whether we get a rate cut today or not. In FX, we've seen the Aussie underperform slightly, the 10-year Australian yield dipping below 1% again today in today's session. It did that for the first time this week a couple of days ago. And oil on the back foot following stockpiles data and concerns around demand because of coronavirus. A punchy call from Sanford Bernstein in relation to that. WTI down 1.7%, 52.45. Brent at 58.84, down 1.6%.
And one story breaking across the terminal in the last few minutes. Nordea is said to name the Virgin Money Ian Smith as its new CFO. That across the terminal at the moment. Let's move on to some of today's top stories. The death toll from the deadly coronavirus has shot up. China says at least 170 people have died. The number of cases on the mainland has now risen to more than 7,700. The World Health Organization has called a meeting of its emergency committee today. It may issue a global alarm. The group is looking at evidence the disease can be transmitted before a person shows any signs of illness.
And turning to the US, the Fed left its benchmark interest rate unchanged as Chairman Jay Powell said monetary policy is well positioned to support an improving economic outlook. Bloomberg's Michael McKee has the details from Washington.
Powell passed on evaluating dangers posed by the coronavirus, saying the Fed is monitoring developments, but it's too early to know the impact. He also suggested it's too early to know if the Phase 1 trade deal with China will lead to increased business investment. Fed officials made no announcement on when they will stop buying T-bills to expand the balance sheet, Powell saying they will continue to buy until after the tax season. The Fed did raise the rate it pays on excess reserves and repurchase agreements, widely expected technical adjustments to keep the benchmark rate trading in its range. In Washington, Michael McKee, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And today is the Bank of England Governor Mark Carney's final rate decision. It has economists and traders split over whether they'll get the first cut since 2016. Carney recently said that the Bank of England has the space to ease if necessary, and some of his colleagues are signalling they're almost ready to use it. The decision comes out at midday London time.
And Tesla has delivered its second straight quarter of blowout earnings, the record revenue carrying the electric car maker to its fourth profit in the last 6 quarters. The chief executive Elon Musk again accelerated the introduction of the new Model Y crossover. He says deliveries will start in March, months earlier than planned.
Now, Deutsche Bank has joined Wall Street peers in riding a surge in fixed income trading in the last quarter. Debt trading income rose 31%, and while reporting a fifth straight annual loss, Deutsche's CET1 ratio was better than expected. The CFO, James von Moltke, spoke to Bloomberg's Matt Miller, who began by asking him whether they struck the right balance on bonuses as the German lender undergoes a massive restructuring.
we're obviously very alive to the considerations in our home market on these topics. Look, compensation overall is one of the most important management processes that we run every year. That's for the whole company and also for the management board. We gave deep consideration to our own decisions personally and as a group, and feel we arrived at the right compromise, if you like, between recognizing the cost both for shareholders and employees of the significant restructuring that we're undertaking and that we're leading for the company, but also attempting to align our interests with the long-term interests of shareholders. We think we struck the right balance both in the social environment and as responsible stewards of the company.
So walk me through how you get to this loss. 5.3 billion was the net number. I noticed pre-tax you lost 2.6 billion euros, but includes 3 billion in essentially restructuring costs.
Exactly. So our commentary is that really the loss this year, both after tax and pre-tax, was entirely driven by restructuring costs, transformation effects as we call them. And that's across a range of areas: deferred tax asset valuation adjustments after tax, and then on the pre-tax line, goodwill impairments, software impairments, restructuring charges. That is all more or less in line with what we guided the market back in July when we announced this restructuring. We announced that we wanted to finance it from our own resources, and we've demonstrated in the first 2 quarters of this restructuring that we were able to do that. We, in fact, increased our capital ratio to 13.6%. So I see all of this as very much on track against the goals and targets that we set out. We've hit every single target, every single milestone of this restructuring. What I think is important is the message that